Welcome! Today we're going to master the Perform Qualitative Risk Analysis process. A solid command of this process is absolutely critical for your success on the PMP exam, so let's get straight to it.
We're going to break this down into 6 distinct sections. We'll start by understanding the fundamental problem this process solves, then we'll get into the mechanics, and finally we'll cover its outputs and where you go from there.
All right, let's dive right in. First, we need to understand why this process even exists. What is the fundamental challenge it's designed to solve for a project manager who needs to maintain absolute control?
Now consider this very common, very real-world scenario. You've just finished the Identify Risks process, and now you're staring at a massive, unorganized list of potential threats and opportunities. The sheer volume can feel completely overwhelming.
This state of being overwhelmed, well, it has a name: analysis paralysis, and it is a serious threat to your project. It can completely derail your efforts by consuming your team's limited time, money, and focus on risks that don't actually matter. We need a mechanism to cut through all that noise.
So with that problem in mind, where does this process fit into the overall project management framework? What is its core function?
The key benefit, and the concept you really need to internalize, is that this process acts as a strategic filter. Its main job isn't to analyze every single risk down to the last detail. No, its purpose is to rapidly sort and prioritize, allowing us to focus our limited resources only on the high-priority risks that can genuinely make or break the project.
You'll find this process squarely in the planning process group. The best way to think of it is as a critical bridge. It connects the initial activity of identifying all possible risks to the later, more focused activities of deep numerical analysis and response planning. It directly answers the question, of all these risks we've found, which ones demand our immediate attention?
Okay, to perform this analysis correctly, we have to understand its two fundamental components, probability and impact. And, just as important, we must understand the stakeholder-driven context that gives those components meaning.
So, first up is probability. This is a subjective assessment of how likely a risk is to actually occur. Now, in qualitative analysis, this is not a precise statistical calculation. It is an evaluation based on expert judgment and team perception, typically rated on a very simple scale like low, medium, or high.
Next, we have impact. This measures the potential consequences, the damage a threat could do, or the benefit an opportunity could bring, if the risk actually happens. And we always measure this against our key project objectives: scope, schedule, cost, and quality.
Now, these assessments of probability and impact are not made in a vacuum. They are directly guided by the organization's risk appetite. This is a high-level strategic statement that basically defines how much risk the entire organization is willing to take on to achieve its objectives.
Risk tolerance then takes that high-level appetite and makes it tangible and measurable for our specific project. For example, if an organization has a low appetite for schedule risk, our project's tolerance might be defined as no more than a 5% schedule slippage. This specific number creates a clear boundary between what is an acceptable risk and what is not.
Let's now turn our attention to the central tool used in this process. For the PMP exam, you absolutely must be an expert on the probability and impact matrix. This matrix is a beautifully simple, yet incredibly powerful grid that lets us visually plot every single risk we've identified. Its purpose is to determine a risk's priority quickly and clearly, making it an excellent tool for communicating with our stakeholders.
Now listen closely, because this is a very common subject on the exam. The scales you use for probability and impact, and the exact boundaries for those color-coded risk zones, they are not just made up on the spot. They are defined in advance during the plan risk management process, and they are formally documented in the risk management plan. They are a direct reflection of that stakeholder risk tolerance we just discussed.
And this is the result. Any risk that lands in that high probability, high impact zone, usually colored red, becomes our #1 priority. These are the risks that absolutely demand immediate proactive response planning. Now, beyond just probability and impact, a truly thorough analysis will consider other parameters to refine the prioritization even further. Urgency, for instance, is critical. A risk that needs a response plan implemented within a week is far more urgent than one you have 6 months to prepare for. These other factors add a necessary layer of tactical reality to our strategic assessment.
Let's address a frequent point of confusion on the PMP exam: the difference between qualitative and quantitative risk analysis.
If you misunderstand this distinction, you will lose points. We're going to clarify this with absolute precision right now.
Here is the crucial difference you must remember. Qualitative analysis is all about prioritization. It's fast, it's subjective, and it uses simple ratings to sort a long list of risks. On the other hand, quantitative analysis is all about precision. It's objective, it's data-intensive, and it uses numerical values and statistical models to calculate the exact financial or schedule impact of your top risks.
And here is the absolute key for any PMP exam question on this topic. Qualitative analysis is the broad filter. You perform it on many, if not all, of your identified risks. Quantitative analysis is the microscope. It's an optional process that you only perform on that handful of top priority risks that were flagged by the qualitative process. So, qualitative tells you which risks to worry about, quantitative tells you how much to worry about them.
Finally, let's examine the tangible outputs of this process. Which documents get updated, and how do those updates drive our next command decisions as project managers?
The primary output, of course, is an updated risk register. It's no longer just a simple list. It is now a prioritized, actionable document. It contains the risk scores from your matrix, a clear priority ranking, and critically, an assigned risk owner. That person is now accountable for developing a response. The low priority risks, they're moved to a separate watch list for periodic monitoring. And you absolutely must remember this for the exam. This is not a one-and-done activity that you only perform during the planning phase. Perform qualitative risk analysis is an ongoing iterative process. You will perform it again and again throughout the project as new risks are identified and as existing risks change.
And that brings our explainer to its logical conclusion. You've successfully cut through the chaos, you've filtered out the noise, and you have identified your most critical threats and opportunities. Your next command decision, then, is to move directly into the plan risk responses process, where you will formulate the specific, proactive strategies to manage these top priority risks.